Okay, I might be a little weird, but when I'm applying to a job and it has a section for a cover letter, to upload a cover letter, I'm kind of excited about it. And maybe I'm weird, and maybe I'm the only one. It's fine, I can deal with that. But we're going to talk today about why cover letters can really help you. I know in a lot of different types of jobs, it's not really a thing anymore. People don't really read them that much. But as you know, when I was applying to different writing positions, I feel like this is just another opportunity to show who you are as a writer and how strong you can be as a writer. And I mean, it doesn't hurt to write a little bit more for them to get a feel for how you write. So, and you can also have fun with it. Honestly, we're going to talk today about how I make it fun and not a boring cover letter like, maybe you thought you had to write when you were in school or just starting a job search or anything. We're going to make this fun today, okay? We always want to look sharp when we are applying for different writing jobs. So this is just one other way to do it. We're going to make it fun. We're going to make it awesome. And you're going to stand out and feel confident when you're applying to jobs. So let's get into it. Welcome to Robin Writers, where we talk about all things content writing. My name is Becca, and I'm very excited to talk to you about cover letters today. This is going to be a very fun video, I promise. Cover letters don't have to be boring, but before we get into it, I wanted to tell you about the free gift that I have for you today. I made a guide that you can access by following the link in the description below. This guide will walk you through exactly all the types of different writing samples that you can create on your own, whether you want to start from scratch, whether you don't have any writing portfolio at all, whether you want to kind of delete some writing samples that are old and replace them with new ones. We don't have to get hired to write something in order to have it as part of our portfolio. There's a tons of different ways that we can write on our own and show up our skills. So I wanted to create this guide just for you to kind of walk you through different ideas on how to do that. So again, the link is in the description below. Follow that to access the guide, and I hope that helps. All right, so now we're going to talk about cover letters. I feel like a total nerd because I truly do like cover letters. I think it's because there's nothing that you have to do for it. Like, there's no real structure that someone is like really expecting you to follow. I think of it a lot like if you went to college and you had to write a college essay. It's kind of like that, except instead of trying to get into school, you're trying to get a job into a company. But it's kind of similar in the case that there's so much freedom that you have with it, and to really kind of write in a way that draws someone's attention, that shows them more about you and what you're about, and to stand out. So the first rule that I have about cover letters is to not talk about what's on your resume. And this is something that I've seen from others. I used to work at the tutor center at my college, and I would sometimes help people with cover letters and resumes as they were about to graduate and preparing for the job search and all that. And it was tempting for a lot of people to start writing about stuff that was on their resume, kind of to summarize what they've done throughout their career and talk about different jobs that they've had and where they've worked. And I can see why. I can totally understand, because you want to reiterate your experience and what you've done and what you've learned from different things. That totally makes sense. But the only problem with that is the people who are reviewing your cover letter already have your resume. So you don't want to kind of waste their time, per se, reading a cover letter that just repeats exactly what is on your resume, So as long as you have a well-written resume, you have all the great keywords, and you have everything there that is describing the gist of kind of what you've done and what you've accomplished in each job that you have, I think that's awesome. That can stand on its own. The cover letter is more of a compliment to your resume, if you think of it that way. So just kind of stay away from repeating exactly what's on your resume, because you already spent so much time, writing your resume and making it great. You don't want to have to just kind of regurgitate it into a cover letter. All right, my second piece of advice for a cover letter is to think about a moment in time that can relate, like a story about your life or an experience that relates to the job that you're applying to. So for example, if I was applying to a content writer position, I might think about the very first blog post that I ever wrote, or the first time that I was inspired to create a blog, and that moment, like really hone in on like a moment and tell that story. Like really, I think this is a great way for you to really practice like a storytelling kind of a skill, and kind of bring people back into that moment that kind of inspired you to build out your career, or like when you had a really difficult situation happen at work and how you solved that. I think that's a lot more effective in showing who you are and either where you've come or a challenge that you overcame than kind of listing out what's on your resume. Really choose one specific example. So I would love, and I have before written about the first time that I started a blog, and just the feeling that I had once I started publishing more blog posts and kind of knew that's where I wanted to go with my career. I just kind of like honed in on that one detail of my life that just became the foundation of my career. So instead of talking more broadly, you want to like choose a specific story that you can tell, if that makes sense. And that kind of goes into my third piece of advice. You want to make sure that your cover letter is not something that anyone could submit. So, and this kind of ties into my first rule there, to not regurgitate your resume, because a lot of times if your cover letter is, I went to school for communications. Then I got a copywriter job. Then I got a marketing specialist job. Like, a lot of people could say they graduated with a communication degree. A lot of people could say they got like various marketing or writing roles, That's a little too broad, and you really want to hone it in and be very specific on what you're saying so that each sentence is not something that someone else could just put it into theirs, You want it to be specific to you, because if you write more of a generic cover letter, you're just going to kind of blend in with everybody else, and you just won't really stand out that way. You want to be specific, and you want to catch their eye. My fourth piece of advice is to remember that this is another way that you're marketing yourself. So with content writing, this all ties in with marketing, and this is just another like marketing piece that is part of your campaign, I guess you could say, that is working towards getting you a job. And I think this is why I kind of enjoy writing cover letters, because it's like a marketing collateral, right, for yourself, like a brochure about yourself almost, that you just get to use as like a tool that kind of shows off more of who you are and what you can do and what you're capable of, and kind of like draws your audience in. In this case, your audience is the potential employer or recruiter, HR professional that might be hiring you. So I just think that's a fun way to look at it, instead of just like this boring letter that you have to write to go along with your application, that whole process. If we can make the cover letter one part of the job application process fun, I think that's successful. Because also at the same time, if you are not enjoying writing your cover letter, no one's really going to enjoy reading it. It kind of goes along with anything else. If you write a blog post and you're not into the topic you're writing about and you just kind of write it, like, that shows with your writing a lot of the times, and your readers just won't be as excited because you weren't really excited writing it. So think of it that way. Write about something that you really enjoy, because you want to be able to market yourself properly. You want to be exciting, and you want to, like I said before, draw people in. It's all about attention. Same thing with marketing. You want to capture people's attention, and your cover letter can do just that. Okay, my fifth piece of advice is to proofread your cover letter. And this might be obvious for us as writers, but I think it's still worth mentioning. A lot of times with the job application process, we have a lot of different jobs we're applying to, or interviews, or other pieces, writing samples and portfolio stuff, and everything that you're doing to prepare for all these different job interviews and applications and everything. We can kind of get caught up in everything. And, if you find a job that you really care about and you're really interested in, make sure that you do everything that you normally would for any piece of writing that you would publish or submit to anyone. Make sure that you proofread, and even maybe have someone else read it too. You never know, another set of eyes, just like anything else, could be always very helpful. So I just like to throw this in there to definitely take that time to proofread and really make it sharp. Okay, this is something that not everyone will probably want to hear, but I think it makes a huge difference, and that is write a different cover letter for each application that you submit. And there are some maybe that are very similar jobs, or you would want to use a similar story or similar details in some. I can kind of understand that, but I think in most cases, I usually just write a new cover letter for each application, because you want it to kind of like a resume. You'll kind of tweak resumes with different keywords and different types of skills and stuff you'll include sometimes. At least I do, and I think that's important too. But for a cover letter, if you can make it as specific and as tailored to that company, I think they'll really notice it. And if they know that you wrote this cover letter just for them, that goes a long way. And it's kind of just like any kind of content writing. You know, if I were to write a blog post that didn't connect with my audience and my audience felt like I was just kind of like writing it to anybody and didn't really matter, I wouldn't really catch anyone's attention, right? I always have my audience in mind. So the same thing goes with a cover letter. And I think that's why, again, this is fun, because I feel like the concept of marketing just ties in with job search and everything so well, because you're really just marketing yourself the whole time. So with a cover letter, it's the same thing. You want to keep your audience in mind, and you want to address them and talk about specifics with them. Like, for example, if I were to apply to Upwork, it's an online freelance website if you aren't familiar with it, I would write about the very first time that I discovered Upwork and my first client experience and how it became the foundation of my career, which it did. And I actually talk about it in another video. I'll include that link in the description below too, on how I started my writing career by freelancing through Upwork. Very, very helpful, and I am so thankful for them. But honestly, that is a great example of what I would write for my cover letter for them, because writing about how I discovered Upwork, that specific company, and how it became a foundation of my career, that is not something that I could just like use for another job application and kind of like switch up the company names. You know, I only had that one experience with starting as a freelancer, and that story of like how I was a very poor college graduate and I needed supplemental income for my full-time job, and I just kind of searched, you know, how do I make money online with my writing? Upwork at the time, Odesk, popped up, and you know, I would tell that whole story with my cover letter, and I just feel like I wouldn't be able to replicate that kind of cover letter for any other company, and I think that would be really noticeable for them, and they would probably appreciate it. So that's just one example, and I think that goes a long way when you have that personal touch, and they know that you're not just like reusing the same template of a cover letter and just swapping out business names. I think that could really go a long way. So that's just something that I feel is really helpful. Okay, my 7th piece of advice is actually related to how you save the document, how you name the naming convention that you use for the cover letter document. So, you know, if you think about it, I'm sure that companies receive a lot of documents that are called like cover letter or like name cover letter. And we want to stand out in every single possible way possible throughout this whole process. So for that, I always save my cover letters as first name, last name, company name, job title, the words cover letter, and the year. And I put my first name and my last name first because I want that always to be something that they see first. I want my name, pretty much you want your name everywhere possible because that's your brand. You know, just like marketing is your brand, and you want them to remember your name. If you have your name everywhere possible in the subject line of follow-up emails, if you have it in your resume document, how that's saved, and your cover letter document, how that's saved, everywhere possible, they are going to remember your name. They're more likely to remember your name that way. So I always start with my name, and I name it exactly like that so they know I made that cover letter exactly for them. Because the cover letters that they receive that are named, you know, cover letter 2021, I mean, I feel like it's not very specific, and the people didn't take the time to really write a specific cover letter to that company. And maybe they did, but I feel like by using that naming convention, that further shows how tailored and how specific that you were in creating this cover letter just for them. And I think that really just goes a long way. Just another little detail. These little details can add up, so I just always recommend doing that. And it's really easy. It's not like hard to do it. So I just think it's worth it, just this little detail. All right, so basically with your cover letter in general, you just want to tell your story, you know, hone in on a specific time in your life, tell that story, make it stand out, make them want to keep reading it. You know, this is another way to this is kind of another writing sample for them on how exactly you can write. You know, get them with the hook at the beginning. It doesn't have to always be, you know, I'm so excited for this content writer opportunity with your company and I can't wait to learn more. Like, that's kind of something that probably everyone begins their cover letter with. And for me, I just think it's boring and it's just predictable and people expect it. So honestly, I just start off with a hook, as if I'm writing a blog post, as if I'm writing social media posts. Like, you want to start off with a hook to get them reading. You want to get into your story, get into the details, have them want to keep reading line by line, just like any other piece of content we'll write. Kind of think outside the box. I think that's why I kind of ditched the whole like standard intro, because that was just boring. And if you think about how many cover letters these people are reading, especially for writing related jobs, you know, I think it's kind of a standard thing, at least from what I've seen, is to submit a cover letter, and they'll probably read cover letters from people who are applying to writer roles more often, I think. So I think it's still worth it. But just think about how many cover letters they're reading. You know, and maybe a lot of, I don't know, maybe people don't start off with the boring way, and that's, you know, and that's great. But in order to kind of keep their attention, I think we want to apply these strategies that we use with our content writing to this cover letter, because it is a piece of content if you think about it. So use the same strategies. Start with your hook, get into the body, work line by line through the whole thing, keep people reading, end off strong, keep it sharp, keep it concise, and just use it to stand out. Be yourself and just write in the most engaging way that you know how to write. Okay, so for the format of the cover letter, I keep mine super simple. I don't think it has to be anything too crazy. I keep like 1-inch margins usually, unless I go like just over a page, then I think I use like 1/2-inch margins, just because I like to keep it simple, and maybe my OCD is weird, and if I go like 2 lines over the first page, it just like looks funny to me. So, you know, I don't think that's a huge deal to worry about, but pretty much I write the date in the top right corner. And then if it's available, if you have the full, like, if it's a big company, like if it's a headquarters address or the office location that this role would be reporting to, sometimes I'll have the company name and then the address in the top left corner. And then when I start off the cover letter, so for example, if I'm applying to Upwork, I would write Upwork with a colon. I think cover letters are typically kind of a formal-ish type of writing, so I don't really say like "Dear Upwork," like I'm writing a letter to them. It is a letter. It's a cover letter, but it's also a more formal piece of writing. So so that's why I just usually use the colon, just to keep it simple like that, and just look professional. So Upwork colon, and then I will write the whole cover letter, and then at the bottom I'll end with my salutation. I'll sincerely, best, you know, however you like to end your letters you're writing, and then I'll write my full name first and last, and then I'll write my phone number underneath my name. And that is a very important detail, because just like your name, how you want that everywhere because it's your brand, you want people to remember you by your name, you also want it to be very, very easy for people to contact you if they want to contact you. And that is just like with marketing too. If you're marketing for a brand and you want people to contact the brand, if the company wants phone calls, if they want emails, if they want to place online orders, you know, you're gonna have all that information and very, very easily accessible, so that when someone lands on a website, they're not gonna have to search for a phone number, search how to log in somewhere, search how to, you know, make an appointment, or, you know, however it's set up. You want to make it as easy as possible for people to contact the company, and the same thing goes with you during this process. You want people to not have to work in order to find your information and had to contact you, especially in the case of hopefully being asked for a job interview or an offer. You want your phone number everywhere so that no one has to work harder to find it. So I just always add it onto the bottom right underneath my name after I sign it. And that's how I end it. And I guess if you want to be super fancy, you could also actually sign the cover letter and then send a copy of the signed cover letter. I don't think I've actually ever done that, but if you're feeling fancy, then why not? Go for it. Doesn't hurt. And that's probably a cool way to stand out from competition too, because probably no one does that unless they do, and maybe I don't know, but I think that's a cool little added detail. Maybe I'll keep that in mind. So that is how I like to write cover letters. That's how I like to think about cover letters. I think it's, like I said, it's kind of like the college essay, which I love to tutor my students on. I think there's just a lot of freedom with the college essay and with the cover letter. And it's just a great compliment to your resume and your writing portfolio and everything else that you have with the application and everything else. I think it's just a great way to just kind of freestyle and tell your story. Like I said, tell more about yourself and just show who you are as a writer and a professional, and to stand out among your competition. So before I let you go, don't forget about my free guide on how to create a ton of different writing samples for your portfolio to feel confident about your writing and to proudly showcase your work online. Or if you don't have an online portfolio, you'll always have these samples in your back pocket ready to go. So again, that link to access my free guide is in the description below. I hope that helps you. I had fun writing it, and I hope this whole video on how to write your cover letter was helpful. Again, I love writing cover letters. It's like a weird, I don't know, I'll just own it. I think it's fun. I think I just like the freedom of it. And I hope these pieces of advice help you have fun with your cover letter and just make you feel more confident about them. So thanks so much for watching, and have a fabulous day.